zone and penalties left Coach Ryan Day reflecting.
It's too close. Was just it's going to be something we'll have to take a look at.
The only way you can take CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere. We've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Good Sunday morning to you. Yes, Week 17 of the NFL season is upon us. The Raiders will be in Denver, and they will be fighting for a playoff spot. As crazy as that sounds, and as much of a long shot as it is, that is the truth, folks. I am Scott Gobranson. Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 from Las Vegas, Nevada, from the Findlay Chevrolet Studios. I am joined, as I always am, by my guys, my team, my squad, who I wouldn't trade for anybody, right? They might trade me, but I would not trade them.
It's in the works.
Starting with Mr. Kelly Kreiner. Kelly, what's up, man?
If you get a good enough deal, nobody's untradeable.
How you doing, brother? What's going on with you?
I'm good. Glad the holidays are coming to an end.
Yeah, you had to work, right?
Yeah, I had to work. I just can't stand New Year's Eve, so.
Oh.
I'm waiting for that to be done with.
That's the thing, for us here, New Year's Eve is big because it's a big day for business because so many people come in. But at the same time, if you're a local, it's hell because it's hard to get around anywhere. They close the streets and all that stuff. So, and then of course, Chaz Osborne is with us as well. Yep. And Chaz, you're just back from California, but you did not have to go through the Cajon Pass snow hell where people were stuck on the highway for like 3-4 hours at a time.
Crazy. Yeah, no, there was a lot of snow on both sides of the road, but I waited it out. Waited a couple extra days down there in the sunny beach before I came back here.
Lucky you. Although it's chilly down there too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a little chilly, a little rainy.
Yeah, it's a winter time. I always loved winter down there too. All right, well, we got a lot to get to today. First, starting off with the fact that the Raiders will, of course, as most of you have heard, will be without star running back Josh Jacobs again. He's done for the season. That shoulder, they've just decided to hold him out despite the fact that they have the slim playoff chances on the line. But guys, right call. I mean, is it not?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, especially with the Texans, they have to beat Tennessee. They're not going to play anybody. They're already locked in.
Mm-hmm.
So the chances, the Raiders have like a 7% chance to make the playoffs. But at this point, even if they make the playoffs, they're not making a run. So I'd be all over just resting, getting everybody healthy.
Yeah, and Jacobs, he's upset about it. He's a gamer. He wants to be out there playing. He wants to be there with his teammates and for the fans. But it's definitely the right call. I don't know, Kelly. We've talked about the rookie wall a few times, and how many games should these guys play or could these guys play? And I don't know if we're talking about NBA and how they're doing management, load management. Yeah. But Jacobs, it's probably definitely the right call. He shouldn't be out there. If he's hurt, he's definitely the centerpiece of this offense going forward, and no reason to mess with that.
Well, but I've seen some fans out there saying, "Hey, but we have a playoff chance." Why? Well, listen, you have a playoff chance, but it's not you don't control your own destiny.
Right.
You have to have a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which I've also seen everybody posting their betting tickets. Everybody's bet what they're calling the Raider.
Should have did it last week. Could have got a 5-teamer last week.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to hit this week.
Yeah, so they got that out there. But yeah, I agree the right call on that as well. And anybody else who was hurting, I would sit as well. Unless offensive line's tough. I mean, Richie Incognito, we don't know for sure. It looks like he's out.
Right.
Because you don't want your quarterback to get murdered, of course, on the field. But at the same time, you also want to make sure guys get healthy and start focusing on next year as well. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, I thought the week, you heard a lot from John Gruden about his team and where they're at, and we continue to hear him use the injury stuff, right? But here's my question for you: Do you guys? There's some folks who think that he's using it too much. Kelly, do you think that? I mean, it's the NFL. Everybody's got hurt players. Do you think the Raiders are any different than most teams?
Not really. Like I said, you're never, no one's ever 100% this time of year. Everybody's dealing with injuries, But at the same time, when you look at, who's injured, they are large components to the team. It's like there's a big difference between an excuse and a reason. And
it's true.
There's a fine line there, but for me, it's more of a reason than an excuse. But at a certain point, nobody wants to hear about it.
Yeah, no, it's a real reason, but you don't want to make excuses. Excuses don't hold anybody accountable. And when you start compounding that, and when we're hearing his press conferences, and he's kind of he's talking about here, he's talking about over here, and let's make people accountable. They're not doing their job. Let's point them out. Let's bring it up. Let's get everybody on the same page. But they have had a lot of injuries this season, and that's definitely one of the headlines.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and some key guys at key times as well in the season has hurt them. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs, though, guys, to start off the show, because everyone, and I assumed as well, hey, rookie of the year. I mean, the kid's got the numbers, only 13 games, 242 carries, 1,150 yards, 7 touchdowns. But when I start to look at this now, missing the 3 games that he's missed, including this last game, there's other guys there, right? You have Kyler Murray, 3,400 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He also has 4 rushing touchdowns. He's won 2 in a row, so he's kind of ending the season, although he's questionable today. And then Miles Sanders should be in the conversation, I believe, because you look at what he's done in Philadelphia. Now, he hasn't rushed for 1,000 yards, but he has 1,276 scrimmage yards, 766 on the ground, 510 receiving because they have no receivers. So he became their de facto go-to receiver as well. I mean, when you look at these 3 guys, what's the argument for and against Jacobs at this point?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I actually bet Miles Sanders at 40-1 to win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah?
About, was it like 4 or 5 days ago?
Smart.
They have to win this game today. Yes. They have like I said, they have nobody to throw the ball to. He's going to be running it. He's going to be catching it. He's got a chance to sneak in there. Now, if you look at the betting lines, Jacobs the even money favorite right now. Daniel Jones and Kyler are 3-1. They're the next 2 in line.
Jones is 3-1 with Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
wow.
It's just the whole quarterback thing.
And
he had 5 touchdowns last week,
yeah.
So everybody tries to forget about the trash games he's had all season.
Trash.
Kyler's had some interesting games, but yeah. I mean, to me, he's been kind of unspectacular. His agent came out on Twitter and posted this whole big thing. He was like, I might be biased, but I think he's the Rookie of the Year, and had all these stats. And one of them was something like he was the first quarterback in NFL history, or the first rookie quarterback to go like 10 games without a lost fumble, or just some stupid, like you're padding it this
stat.
much, you're making stuff up at a point. So, yeah, I think Jacob has it locked in, but, man, it's, a lot of these guys, it's the last thing you see, and Sanders has been on a tear.
Yeah. Well, I'm biased. Of course, I'm going 100% Jacobs. But, like Kelly, what we talked about, when you're scouting these players and, the talent level, it all gets to about right here, right? You don't know if they have that drive or that desire, to succeed at the next level. And that's really when the scouts and the GMs really earn their money, right? They, interviewing the coaches, talking to the teammates, gathering as much information as they can. And credit Mayock and his crew for, recognizing those qualities in Jacobs. And, boy, I think he's exceeded all expectations from Raider fans and everyone else.
And the NFL. I mean, I think people knew he was going to be a good back and surprised by it. But, we talked about in the preseason, and it came unfortunately to be true with the play of Jonathan Abram and how he, because of his aggressiveness and how he played in college, and Kelly said it from the beginning, he's not going on the draft show, you said this, he's not going to be able to play that way in the NFL or he'll get hurt, and sure enough, he did. At the same time, is Jacobs also in that boat where he's got to learn maybe a little bit of how to avoid and not take on so many of those? I mean, fracturing your shoulder, it's not like that happens a lot, but still, now that he's had that issue in his first year, and we know the story with running backs is they don't have a long shelf life, does he need to learn, guys, how to play differently, or do you say, screw it? I mean, if he's the rookie of the year, he's got 1,100, almost 1,200 yards in 13 games, you just leave it alone and let him do his thing. Yeah, exactly.
Well, how are you going to tell Bo Jackson not to run hard, right? How are you going to tell Josh Jacobs not to pancake a guy just because his injured shoulder? These guys, this is what these guys do. And I don't think you can change it. You can hope and tell him, hey, try to, go out of bounds here or lay off here. Don't pancake a guy when he's in front of you and try to make 5 more yards. That's what they do. That's the way they wired. That's their DNA.
Yeah, with Jacobs, though, I mean, he had, his carries in college are so much lower than most of the other people you see with, a first-round pick. That's I think if you add up what he had his whole college career and this year, he's half of what A.J. Dillon at Boston College has had over the last 3 years. So he doesn't have quite as much wear and tear on him. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a nice bonus because he wasn't run into the ground in college.
But on the flip side, he might not have that experience where he's taking some hits from here, this side and that side, and knowing, well, maybe I need to tiptoe this way and step out of bounds that way just to...
Once you get to that point, though, I don't think that's as big of an issue. Because I mean, you've been playing football your whole life. And I mean, he played in the SEC, so he's getting hit by pro caliber players all the time. You mentioned the Abram thing. He had a shoulder issue in college.
Yeah,
this is just going to be something that's going to follow him his whole career.
Right. But then does he have to learn how to play a little different?
Oh no,
the question is he has to, but at the same time, then is he the same player?
I was going to say he has to, but will he or not? I don't.
Yeah.
He just seems like the kind of guy to me that's not going to change.
No.
And I don't mean that like a derogatory or a bad way. It's he just has that mindset that I'm going to go out here, I'm going to lay everybody out.
Right.
And that's what he's going to do. And no matter how much you try to beat it over his head, you can't do this, you can't do this. I'm not sure you can. It's like Spinal Tap, man. He's on 11. I don't think you can turn that down to 9. I don't think you can turn it down to a 7.
It's who they, as Chaz said earlier, right, Chaz? It's who they are.
That's the way they're wired.
And that's what makes them the player they are as well. And you don't want to change too much of that. So betting interests aside, biases aside, guys, does he win it? When you look at Kyler Murray, I think obviously the Cardinals aren't making the playoffs. Miles Sanders could get into the playoffs, and the votes, I'm not sure if I think the voting ends after this week, but they're on, if the Eagles end up winning today and going to the playoffs, does Miles Sanders jump out and lead, or do you guys think that Jacobs has it locked in?
I think Jacobs has it locked in. I also have Jacobs at, I think, 9-1 to win it from the beginning of the season.
Nice.
So betting aside, I can't really do that. But I think he's got it locked in. The Miles Sanders thing for me is a Hail Mary. But like I said,
why not?
At 40-1, throw just a little couch.
No, but like you said, somebody has a great game today. It's kind of a what have you done for me lately league. And if we haven't seen Josh Jacobs for the last 2 weeks, obviously he's the leader in the clubhouse. But if something big, spectacular happens today with one of these other guys like you talked about, it's a possibility. But I think it's definitely Jacobs.
Well, and that will be interesting. Also, remember, though, he is a Raider. And that doesn't always help you when it comes to things. All right, we're going to step aside as we hit our first break. Yeah, when we come back, we are going to talk about draft picks. Yes, the college football playoff is in full swing. Our draft analyst, expert, Kelly Kreiner, we'll talk about that a little bit here as we move forward and maybe talk about some players you should watch, some players that might factor and become Las Vegas Raiders. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The Saints take on the Panthers. The NFL this morning at 10 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Jim Plunkett, and you're listening to the Silver and Black today.
Indeed you are. Welcome back. Week 17, the NFL season, Week 17 of the Raiders season. They could finish 500 after going 4-12 last year. So if they win today, that improves their playoff chances. It doesn't guarantee them one, but I see a lot of folks. Again, we stream the show live on video as well on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter via Periscope, so you can watch us, come in the studio with us. See a lot of fans chatting with us today, thinking that the Raiders are going to go 8-8 and saying that would make a great season. I agree, obviously, after what they've been through the last couple. So that's due. We're going to turn a little bit of our attention right now and talk and have Kelly lead us in a discussion, because starting to see, with the season coming to an end and the playoff chances slim, starting to see folks talk about the draft. It's never too early. Of course, the draft is also going to be here in Las Vegas come April, and so there's an interest there in how the Raiders will do, what they will address first. We did a Twitter poll that I wanted to talk about what they should do, and I asked the question in the poll if, number one, they should go all defense, a mix, meaning, and I had pointed out wide receiver and linebacker as two big needs, mixed needs, or all offense. The results were 76% of you voted that it should be a mix, wide receiver, linebacker in the first. 19% said all defense, and only 5% said all offense. So Kelly Kreiner, our draft expert, as we bring you in on this now, looking at the Raiders, where they're at, what their needs are, significant needs on all areas, really, but I think mostly from my point of view on defense. What you looked at a couple players that might be targets for the Raiders. Tell us about them. Let's start with the defense and clearly the need at linebacker. And on the line still, the line played better, but they still have needs there, and also in the defensive secondary. What do the Raiders do here, Kelly, and maybe what's a guy people should watch as a target for them?
Well, it's funny you said, what do the Raiders what do the Raiders do? We know what they're going to do. They're going to pass over linebacker. And
you think so?
I think they do, and I think it's a mistake. The problem you have, especially this year, 12 to 16 in that range is where both of their picks are probably going to land. And Simmons out of Clemson will be gone by 12. I mean, he's the top linebacker prospect. We saw last night the guy, sideline to sideline, he can cover anybody, so he's a star. After that, you start looking at Dylan Moses and Murray from Oklahoma.
Yeah. What about him?
14 to 16 is just way too high for those guys.
Yeah.
And without the second round pick, I don't see Mayock or Gruden. There's a possibility. I'm sure they'd like to trade one of their first round picks, trade down and get a second back.
Yeah.
There's a possibility if you go back in the first round. Dylan Moses out of Alabama was, in my opinion, the best linebacker, coming in college this year. Gets hurt. His medicals are going to be huge because he was just such an explosive guy in the middle of that defense. You've got to make sure he's back 100%, because if he loses a step or anything, he goes from a first rounder to a fourth rounder.
So if you're the Raiders, do you have to trade that first, Kelly, to get a second, or can you you got 3/3 this year, correct?
Yes, but I don't see them trading any of those three. That's like Mayock's.
That's his round, 3 and 4.
That's like giving a kid on Christmas 3 presents, man. They're not getting rid of any of those. Mayock's going to be all over that.
And Chaz, Kelly mentioned that the Raiders have not had the desire nor the good luck of drafting linebackers that have panned out. Would you prioritize that?
Well, I prioritize defense. So, last year, even though Jacobs has been what he is, I thought it should be all defense, and I'm still on that all defense, right? I mean,
actually, I am too.
If we look at this season, what's the biggest concern and the biggest problem, or whatever you want to call it? It's been the defense. So, yeah, I know we talk about Gunther and how he doesn't emphasize linebackers, but I think you definitely need one. You need one or two in there to take care of business. So I'm with him, yeah. 100% defense, 100% a linebacker, any and all the holes they need to fill on that side of the ball.
No doubt. And so, Kelly, what about other holes on that defense, other players that might factor in, guys that could go as high as the first round of the Raiders on the defensive side of the ball?
The second, obviously, you talk about linebackers. The D-line, I think they're pretty happy with. So unless somebody falls to them that they're not expecting to be there, I don't see them going D-tackle or D-end because, Max has looked really good. Say what you want about Cleveland's year. You're not going to give up on him.
Mm-hmm.
You've already got Mo, Hall, Hankins. So you're kind of set there unless somebody like I really like A.J. Epinesa out of Iowa.
Yeah.
But to me, he's just a better Cleveland Ferrell, so I don't think you're going to go there. But if, say, Derek Brown out of Auburn falls, I don't care who you have on your D-line, you're taking this kid. But I don't see there. I see no way possible of him committing a crime. He falls to that 12 to 15 range. So I'm looking at secondary, and the more and more I think, because, they need a number one wideout. This draft is really stocked with wideouts, so it's possible you might see a big name fall. But the more I think about it, I think if if somehow that Delpit out of LSU falls to that 12 or 14 range, and you can grab him and a Christian Fulton or a Paulson Adebo out of Stanford at corner, if you throw in a safety in a corner and you look at it'll be a super young secondary. But, I mean, you could have Abram, Delpit, Mullen, and say, like I said, a Fulton or a Adebo going forward. That's the makings of a scary secondary. That'll make up for a lot of the lack of pass rush,
right?
And the linebacking core being bad, because that's super athletic, super rangy. I mean, that's a damn good secondary.
Well, and to me, that's the issue. Like, and you were just talking about it, Chaz, which is you need that defense to elevate. It doesn't have to be the top defense in the league, but if you can go from the bottom rungs to the middle rungs with the offense, even without the addition of another wide receiver, just for the sake of argument, I know they will, but without them, Chaz, just by improving, 10 spots in the defensive ranking, bringing down the points allowed, bringing down the scoring and being able to control the line of scrimmage, this team might already have 2 more wins this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like you said, you don't have to be a top – Derek Carr doesn't have to be a top quarterback. You don't need to have a top defensive. As long as you get everybody on the same page in your middle of the road, top 10, 12, somewhere in that range. And we've seen it this year, Jonathan Abrams being injured. And I'm kind of fine with guys, first-year guys, maybe sitting out, holding the clipboard, seeing the speed of the game and learning on the fly a little bit like that. So basically – just 1 or 2 more steps forward on the defense, and you've got, you're really building a complete team here.
No doubt. And so, Kelly, when we look at that, one of the things, too, and we're just doing this for the sake of discussion, a lot of Raider fans think they should draft a quarterback, okay? We're not saying that. I've said all along and still believe that Derek Carr will be the starting quarterback when they come to Las Vegas. But if you were going to draft a quarterback, you're not going to do it in round 1, because at the bottom of round 1, no matter what people say about Jalen Hurts and some of the other guys, they're not first rounders. So if you are, let's say the Raiders wanted to get a quarterback, who would be available in rounds 3 or 4?
I mean,
worth a damn.
That's going
right?
to be the big question, because, I mean, we have no idea how many are going to go round 1. There are a lot more teams that are looking at quarterback than people think. Because, I mean, if you look over, if you just look over the draft order right now, it's not set yet, but we've got a good enough idea where it is. There's a chance San Diego goes quarterback at number 1.
Yeah.
Nobody's really looking at that. The Steelers, they're bringing Ben Roethlisberger back, but I mean, what's he got left in the tank? He's looking at somebody. The Colts signed Brissett, but they're not. He's not the future. We've seen that. So, I mean, you could have anywhere from 3 quarterbacks go in the first round to 6 quarterbacks go in the first round. And if you see 5 or 6 QBs go, that just completely drains this pool to where I don't even think the Raiders look in that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round for a quarterback, because you've just taken out so many options already. Yeah, you might grab somebody, I mean,
low though, like
I was gonna say like the 6th round,
right? And
I was gonna say like the kid out of Washington State, Gordon, which ESPN showed a great stat the other night. They screwed it up. They had him throwing for 4,500 touchdowns this year instead of passing yards.
Yeah,
that'd be impressive. You know, if you could do that,
that might get him in the first round.
Yeah, that would get him in there. But I mean, it's just there's such a lack of depth in my opinion. If the Raiders are looking for a quarterback, it has to be round 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'd have to move up.
No, I don't think you have to move up. I think you can move down. And like I said, if they wanted to trade one of their picks down, because to me in this quarterback class, and I'll get killed for saying this, but the Gruden guy to me is Jake Fromm out of Georgia.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't make mistakes. He's not turning the ball over. Super smart guy, but he's basically just Derek Carr to me. I mean, they're pretty much the same player. It's just he's a cheaper version at this point on a rookie contract. You can get him at the end of a first round if you trade down. Wow. You might be able to, like I said, depending on how many go, you might be able to get him in a second if you move down.
But do we really see John Gruden drafting a quarterback and grooming him and taking?
No, because Gruden, I looked this up the other day. He's drafted 3 quarterbacks since he's been in the league. Tuiasa Sopo was a 2nd rounder. Chris Sims was a 3rd rounder, and Gradkowski was like a 5th or 6th rounder.
Right.
Yeah,
not his thing.
He loves quarterbacks, but he hasn't done a lot of developing. All right, we're going to step aside. Coming up next, Benjamin Allbright from KOA Denver. He'll help us break down today's game against the Broncos and what you should watch for and how the Broncos are motivated to ruin the playoff chances of your Raiders. Take some time. Don't go anywhere, though. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio 1140 is serving up a tasty bowl. Sports Radio. The only way to take Silver and Black today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. We go out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, and we bring in Benjamin Allbright. Benjamin, of course, a NFL insider now, is the co-host of Broncos Country Tonight on KOA in Denver. Benjamin, welcome back to the Silver and Black today.
Hey, good to be back.
All right, so let's talk about the Broncos. A game today with the Raiders up at Mile High Stadium. And for the Raiders, there's a little bit on the line, perhaps. It's a long shot for the Raiders to make the playoffs, but they're still mathematically alive. And this Broncos team started 0-4, and everybody wanted to fire Vic Fangio after 4 weeks. The Broncos playing much better football with Drew Lock at the helm on the offense. The team won't make the playoffs for the fourth straight year, which is tied for the longest in the NFL history by a Super Bowl winner. But things are looking up. The ups and downs, having that first-time head coach, despite the fact that Fangio has probably forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. When you look at this team, Benjamin, overall, what one word would you use to sort of describe what 2019 has been like for them?
Oh, man, one word, that's tough. Youth movement. The Broncos have the youngest offense in the NFL, the third youngest roster in the NFL. I think change is probably the word if you're going to use one word. Most of that Super Bowl team is gone now. At the end of this season, you're probably only looking at Brandon McManus and Von Miller being the last two remaining members of that team. It's been a changing of the guard. In the secondary, the leadership is now Kareem Jackson, and a first-year player, but NFL veteran, and Justin Simmons. The linebackers, they stumbled their way into Alexander Johnson, and he's turned out to be a revelation. Bradley Chubb figures to be healthy again next year. That's going to be good. And, that defensive line, they've gotten some pretty good play out of guys that other people thought were either washed up or couldn't make it. Mike Purcell with the AAF, Derek Wolfe, everybody said was washed. And, Shelby Harris has been good, but he changed positions, started the season at the nose, then moved to kind of the three tech. So, I think change is probably the operative word.
Yeah, good one. Of course, the big change first, too, starting out was with the head coach, right? So Vic Fangio comes in, longtime NFL coordinator, comes in to play with the Broncos as their head coach. And people were really hard on him, Benjamin, to start this season off. And as things progressed, I think people have understood that, look, Vic Fangio is not the problem. They need to rebuild parts of that roster. For Vic Fangio and what you've seen from the beginning of the year till now, what's been his biggest adjustment and what has he been able to do with this young roster?
Well, I think for him, it's just been finding the right guys to work with, within what it is that he wants to run. It's a team that had run the same defense for several years, 4 or 5 years in a row, basically Wade Phillips variant defense, which is send the house at the quarterback, put your corners on an island, and hope for the best. Vic Fangio's philosophical approach is almost fundamentally opposite of that. Vic wants to send the least amount of people he needs to send to get the quarterback, and everybody else drop back in zones and and try to play for the pickoff. And so there's been an adjustment period. Some of the guys have gotten it, some of them haven't. Chris Harris has struggled at times with it. They've had a lot of injury to overcome. They're down to their, I think, 6th and 7th corners now. Callahan never made the field. Bosby only got a couple of games. They've been using Will Parks as the nickel, and he's really a safety. Duke Dawson and Devontae Harris saw time. Yadam, of course, got roasted in that game to open the season. But it's really been about finding the right guys, whether that's on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball, getting to that quarterback. And, Cortland Sutton emerging, Noah Fant kind of emerging late in the season. So there's a lot of, if you're a Broncos fan, there's a lot of sense of optimism for next year.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue, right? Broncos fans are so used to winning and so used to that tradition that the struggles they had at the beginning of the year, I can see where fans were sort of jumping off the bandwagon a little bit or looking to play the blame game, whether it was with the coach or the quarterback. And of course, the switch to Drew Lock, I think a lot of people thought maybe it would happen sooner. It did not. He comes in, he's won 3 of his last 4 starts. And like most rookies, Benjamin, he makes mistakes, but there's a fire and kind of a swagger that I think at that position the Broncos haven't had since Peyton Manning. What has he done and you've seen that you like, and what does he need to do when he looks towards perhaps playing a full season as a starter in 2020?
Well, he's aggressive with the ball. He lets his playmakers make plays, puts the ball out there for them to try to make plays. And, he trusts his arm a little too much. That's got him in trouble a couple of times. But, I think overall he's a guy that, that he trusts his playmakers, and he's put more faith in Cortland Sutton. And, we've seen Cortland kind of emerge because of it. It's interesting because the other 2 quarterbacks who started the season, ahead of Drew, Joe Flacco and Brandon Allen, were playing, ridiculously safe with the ball, or trying to play ridiculously safe with the ball. Flacco, of course, had no mobility anymore. Brandon Allen at least could move, but Flacco would drop 5-7 steps and then just plant, and he'd get sacked because that edge rush just had a free lane right to him, and it made the line look bad. People were criticizing the line, but it really wasn't on the line. It was a quarterback that was washed and didn't want to go down the field with the ball. And then Brandon Allen, the game's just it's a little too fast for him. He's a career spot start backup type. He was kind of thrust into it as the transition between Flacco and waiting to get Drew back off the injured reserve and get him up to speed. So I think that Drew provides an arm that'll challenge defenses vertically, and he's kind of got that moxie, where he's not afraid to do it. If he makes a mistake, he's going to come back and keep swinging. And, I think that can be a good thing for a rookie as they're learning.
Oh, yeah. Again, we're joined by Benjamin Allbright. He is the co-host of Broncos Country Tonight on KOA up in Denver, longtime NFL insider as well. Now, that offensive line, we know that's going to be a point of emphasis in the offseason for them as well. But there's also some players that are a little bit in flux because of contracts, because of age and other things. You look at that defensive side, you mentioned Justin Simmons. He's on that last $2 million year of his of his rookie contract. And then, of course, you mentioned Chris Harris as well, the cornerback. What about those guys? What do you think is going to happen with Simmons in particular? And is Harris kind of in that twilight of his career where the Broncos really aren't going to pony up the money to keep him?
Yeah, I think you're correct on Chris. They're going to kind of let the market set the market, let him go out there, and if he gets an offer, they'll bring it back to him to kind of see if they want to match it. But they don't want to spend very much on him, and he wants to get paid one last time. So that's kind of where the impasse is. They feel like they encouraged some goodwill by giving him that money back during his holdout. To start the season. But overall, there's not really much of a place for Chris. He's more of a man corner. He's lost about half a step, and you've seen that with him kind of getting torched a couple of times this season. So I think that the Broncos are basically looking at this situation like, well, if the market says, hey, we don't have any room for you, then we'll turn around and we'll pay you a hometown deal to stay here.
Yeah. So, and you look at that Broncos defense, I think you look at this last spell, and remember the Broncos, I think they have 3 losses by 3 or less points. This could be a very different season, and the Broncos could be the team playing Sunday to get in the playoffs versus the Raiders. But on that defense, you have a Draymond Jones. You have, of course, you mentioned Chubb, another young player there. What one guy on that defense has really jumped out at you this season and really made a statement?
Well, Alexander Johnson came out of nowhere. Before the season started, I said this is going to be the year Simmons makes himself a household name because he's finally a system that works for him. Having him back there as in zone where he could use that athleticism. But Alexander Johnson's the guy that really came out of nowhere. He was kind of buried on the depth chart. Todd Davis got hurt. Josie Jewell and Joe Jones were out there. Joe Jones gets hurt. They bring Corey Nelson in. He gets hurt. And then finally Alexander gets out there, and all of a sudden he's just a revelation. He had about a 6-8 game stretch there where he was one of the top-rated linebackers in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. He's just his athleticism, his attitude, it's infectious, and I think he's the guy you kind of keep an eye on. He's a little banged up at his knee now. He's slowed down over the last couple of weeks, but when he's fully healthy, he's a tone setter.
Well, in this game today, of course, with the Raiders, long shot to make the playoffs. They got to first beat the Broncos, and of course, during that same time, they have to have a lot of other things go their way. But you look at this game, Josh Jacobs not going to play for the most part. I mean, he was doubtful. We haven't heard any change in that status. Doesn't look he's gonna go. The Broncos have struggled against the run this season. When you look at this game today, I mean, you have the old AFL rivalry, right? The Broncos and the Raiders. They don't like each other. This game at home in Denver, they want to play spoilers in this one, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. And that's an attitude that's pervasive right now. Phil Lindsay commented specifically on it, saying if Raiders thought they were going to make the playoffs coming through Denver, they got another thing coming. So there's that attitude. These guys are getting up for this game. This team's not checked out, even though they're not going to make the playoffs. I think they feel like it's a point of pride not to have a double-digit loss season, to be able to knock the Raiders out. I think there's a lot of things kind of on the line for them here at the end of the season. So I think their mindset is right. Coming into this football game, I think it's going to be a little different result than the last time around. It's fun to have, the Raiders as bookends to the season.
It is. And the first game, I mean, it could have been very different in that first game. Could the ball bounce a couple different ways. Now, when you look, the Drew Lock, I want to close on that a little bit because is this a big game today for Drew Lock, or do you feel like they've seen enough from him that they're going to commit to him going into next year as the starter and feel good about it?
Well, unless he totally wets the bed in this one, then yeah, that he's definitely, as it sits right now, if he weren't playing in this game, he would be the incumbent going into next season. He's certainly earned the right to have a full season audition for the role, and that's kind of the way they're looking at it. Rich Gangarella today at the podium said that Drew reminded him a lot of ways of Jimmy Garoppolo, the way he just comes in and re-energizes people. Guys just want to play for him, and you could see it out there. I was on the sideline during that first start of his against the Chargers, and I can tell you that it was just different. It was just a different tone. Just guys wanted to be out there. Heck, I wanted to put pads on and hit somebody. So, it's different when you've got a quarterback that's motivated. And Drew really is that guy.
Yeah, no, he's got that intangible, and that's what I always liked. I mean, there's things you could look at his game clearly coming out of college when we were talking draft back in 2019 earlier in the year, and that's the one thing I liked about the kid always is he has that fire, and that's something you don't teach. That's something you got to have in you, and it's good to see that he's been able to do that. Now, Benjamin, before I let you go as well, listen to your show this week, and Die Hard is a Christmas movie, right? And
definitely.
Not only that, but I have a Die Hard ornament on my Christmas tree. So my kids are growing up the right way. So I love that discussion you guys had. But hey, man, listen, I'm glad you had a great Christmas. Have a great New Year. And again, that's Benjamin Allbright. He's the co-host of Broncos Country Tonight on KOA. Again, man, thanks again. And follow him on at Allbright, 2 L's, ALLBRIGHT NFL on Twitter. Take care, my man. Have a good day today.
Absolutely, guys. Take care.
All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, the Silver and Black Today rolls on a game day. Don't go anywhere.
In 2019,
The NFL this afternoon at 1:30 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. And guys, we tweeted it out earlier. Week 89 in a row for this show.
Solid.
Yeah, 89 weeks, including summer, through the doldrums of summer.
Yep.
When the off season, where there's nothing going on, we're always talking
We
Raiders
bring
football.
it.
That's right, and we will continue to do so. Don't forget to join Chaz and I Tuesday night, Silver and Black Tonight, where we'll recap today's game and talk about the end of the season. And then next week, Mo Moten will join us, and we'll have kind of our postseason roundtable. Now, somebody is out there saying, well, what if they make the playoffs? Well, we'll talk about that later, too. But we will have our postseason roundtable no matter what. So you definitely want to make sure you pay attention, and we'll let you know when that happens next week. Make sure you subscribe. Go up on YouTube, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss us. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because that podcast is this show just in the audio version recorded so that you can get it and make sure that you don't miss another show. Okay, this portion of the show, we want to talk a little bit with the guys here about the playoffs, right? So the Raiders, they have a playoff chance. In fact, we have NFL Network here on the TV in the studio, and if you're watching the video, you see Chaz looking up because he's watching it. But they were just going over the playoff scenario as well. And guys, here's the question I want to pose to both of you and have a discussion around: is the playoffs at this point, is it always a good thing, or when you're still rebuilding, you're getting closer, but you need talent, is it better that you don't make the playoffs?
No, well, I've said Raiders, any team benefits from playoff experience. The way the intensity level goes up, every play is magnified, and, it's really invaluable. But I think even for the Raiders, just to get this close, and, now I know they have an outside shot, but for them being this close, just to have that taste in your mouth, the hunger, that'll carry over to next season.
I'm on the other side.
You're on the other side. I knew you were.
I want the draft pick. It's like the scenario we're at now. If they lose last week at the Chargers game and lose this week, they'd have been in 8 or 9 spot. They could fall, like Simmons could have fallen to 8. Could have been a major hole filled right there. And half this team might not even be here next year for that playoff experience.
But the other half that will be here.
That's the whole thing. It's like, I get what you're saying. You get a little more practice time. You get a little more, you get some experience.
Yeah.
Give me the draft pick, man, because talent wins in this league.
Yeah, but we've had that draft pick for 17 years, and, it hasn't done – I don't know. Okay, how about the Ohio State-Clemson game last night? I feel like that's a perfect example. There's 2 evenly matched teams, right? And Clemson having that playoff experience, just that extra knowledge, I feel like gave them the confidence to kind of pull out that victory.
So the playoff experience for Clemson's why the Ohio State kid runs the wrong route and loses the game.
So that one play lost them the game?
If he runs the right route, they score a touchdown, that game's over.
So nothing before that, the whole game mattered except for that one play.
Okay, the officials blowing the fumble call, that had a lot to do with it.
Okay, so
and I had money on Clemson, and I'm saying this.
Well, but here's the story. So Chaz, using your point about experience, right? So the difference between a regular season game, the intensity, the intention, all that stuff leading up to the game, I agree. I think that's valuable for a young player. The young players that are going to be there, the Josh Jacobs, if he was going to play, those guys who are new to the NFL. At the same time, like our viewer on YouTube, Angelo Belcher, who watches every week. Hi, Angelo. He says, what do you learn from going into the playoffs and losing by 28 points?
Yeah.
It's a good question,
no,
but I know you have a good answer for it.
No, that's fair. No, absolutely. And you do. You learn from that. You learn from your failures. You learn from your mistakes, and you move on. You can use that as fuel for the next season and the next playoffs. We talk about New England and how they've got this great dynasty, and they've done it without these top-tier players every year, year in and year out. Well, why? Because they have that experience. They have the players with the knowledge. They have the leaders to be able to take them, put them on their backs, and progress. They don't have a bunch of guys, woe is me, the next season, they don't care. They've got a bunch of guys in that locker room with one singular focus because of this leadership, because of the experience and the knowledge.
No, it's because they cheat.
Good point.
Well, but
they have the best coach in the history of the NFL, probably the best quarterback, and they cheat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the recipe for success.
You're not cheating, you're not trying.
Right. Well, here's the thing, though, because I'm kind of in the middle between you guys on this one, because I see Chaz's point for a young player so that the next time you get there and you actually have what I believe a better chance to win and maybe make a drive in the playoffs towards a championship. At the same time, Kelly's point, man, you need bodies. And so I'm torn, and that's where we've said it over and over again on this show throughout the course of this year that 8-8's almost the worst record you can have, because you're going to finish between 15 and 18 draft pick probably, or somewhere around there, 12 to 15. And then but yet you don't make the playoffs. So it's kind of like Now, Kelly, since you're our draft guy, if they win today, and let's say they did make the playoffs and they lose in the first round, how big of an impact could that have in the first round of the draft?
Depending on strength of schedule and everything, without even looking at it in front of me, you're looking at probably about a 5 or 6 pick difference.
Wow, that's significant in the first round.
That's like you talk about. Oh, hey, last year they won a couple extra games. They probably shouldn't have. That's good going in. No, you went from Joey Bosa to Cleveland Farrell.
Right.
One win made that difference.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there trashing the kid. That's a chasm of talent difference. You got the defense. You had a chance to get the defensive rookie of the year. Instead, you got 4 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had one meaningless win.
Right. But that's last season when you're 4-12. Now when you're looking at it 8-8, Raiders, obviously could have been 9-7 or something better this season. When you've already kind of gotten over that hump and you're looking forward in the playoffs and success in the seasons, you don't want to look back. You don't want to be going 4-12 for the next 17 years. I think Raider fans are done with that.
But that's the thing. In the NFL, you can go from 4-12 to a legitimate playoff team. You know?
And, maybe barring injuries this season, that might have happened.
No, because even if everybody's healthy right now, they're still not making a run in the playoffs. That's my thing. If they had a shot to win a playoff game or two, I would be all in on the playoffs. They're not winning a playoff game.
Right.
They're getting smoked. So it's you're going to lose in the playoffs. So that I would rather have the draft pick than extra week. If you have a chance to run off a win or two, I'm all in.
Right.
But can we agree that if they make the playoffs, they're not making a playoff run?
Yeah, and I think to Chaz, and I think Chaz does a great job on this show of always kind of representing the Raiders fans, and making sure that kind of we remember, what's important to them. And for a fan, it would be great for them to make the playoffs because they've only seen it once in 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now that didn't end well either, but still you get that. But as a true fan who's looking at the future of the team. We're about to head to a break, but future of the team, you're conflicted. To me, that's where I'm at with it. All right, we're going to step aside for the top of the hour sports update. When we come back, Vinny Bonsignore from the Review Journal will join us. He'll tell us why the Raiders may open their new stadium on Sunday Night Football to kick off the season. That would be pretty cool. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
During the holiday
we've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Week 17 of your Raiders season. What are you going to do when it's over?
Man, that was quick.
Holy moly. Now
seasons usually go fast, but this one was like...
It seems like it went really fast. You're back here, Scott Gobranson, Kelly Kreiner, and Chaz Osborne, your guides through your official pregame show for the Raiders. We're just going to call it that. It's not really official with the Raiders. Officially unofficial. But that's what we do every week. We are here 8 to 10 a.m. Also, Tuesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. for Silver and Black Tonight. Yes, they were crazy enough to give us another show.
Whoa.
So there we are. All right. We are now going to head out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line and bring in one of our favorite guys, of course, former contributor here, as well as now the lead Raiders writer at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He'll soon join us and be one of our neighbors. That, of course, is Vinny Bonsignore. Vinny, how you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Just trying to think about what we're going to do after football's over. I mean, it doesn't really end, but you don't get to watch games. That's the only thing. Although we have the playoffs to watch, I guess. But for Raider fans,
we've got the playoffs, and especially this offseason for the Raiders, whenever it does begin.
Yes,
it might be one of the more pivotal off seasons in their history. Certainly, I mean, when you think about the fact that they're moving to Las Vegas, and then they've got 5 picks in the first 90 picks next year. They got $75 million under the salary cap. They have to decide what they want to do with their quarterback, or they want to move in another direction. There were a lot of good-looking quarterbacks on the football field this weekend in college football that have to raise some eyebrows and raise some curiosity. So there's never a shortage of football. It goes year-round.
Yeah, you picked a good time to come aboard and come to Las Vegas. Of course, the last couple of years you covered the Rams and the construction of their stadium. You were on top of relocation overall, including the Raiders, Chargers, and Rams. And we want to talk to you a little bit about your story this past week regarding Allegiant Stadium and the NFL's plans, because clearly going into the 2020 season, Vinny, you have SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, which will be home to the Rams and Chargers, and then, of course, Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas, home of the Raiders. And the NFL is going to want to highlight this. You've said through your sources at the NFL that more than likely, either Thursday, most likely Sunday night, that first national Sunday night game will be at Allegiant Stadium. Talk about why the NFL it wants to highlight that stadium the first week of the season.
Well, I mean, first of all, you've got a lot of effort went into building both of those stadiums. On one hand, you had Stan Kroenke, who's pouring $5 billion of his own money into that project, and securing what had been a problem for the NFL for 20-something years, which is, how are we functioning as a league and operating as a league and presenting ourselves as a league and not have a team in the second biggest market of the country. It never made any sense. But there were complications to doing that. Stan Kroenke and his vision and his billions of dollars and deep pockets was able to solve that for him and correct the wrong by bringing the Rams back where they belong in Los Angeles. But then you also have Nevada, which is contributing $700 million to a private public partnership for a new stadium for the Raiders. And as the league thinks about this, obviously you want to showcase that. You want to showcase and thank the fans of Las Vegas and Nevada and the residents and the politicians and everybody else that was involved, the business leaders that were involved in this, to kind of showcase what this really means and what it's going to mean moving forward, not just for, whether it's the Thursday night kickoff game or the Sunday night premier game on opening weekend, but also in the future with Super Bowls and beyond that, Final Fours and national championship games. I was watching last night the Fiesta Bowl, and obviously that's a great bowl game and big on the list. But there's going to come a time where Arizona, Phoenix, and that stadium gets kind of not pushed to the side, but they're going to be less in the rotation than they were, because when you think about it, that was the only stadium out west that could really host those type of events, whether you're talking about Super Bowls or Final Fours or big events that were indoors, outdoors. Now you have two more stadiums in that hemisphere, in SoFi Stadium and Allegiant Stadium, that are going to be able to do that. And I would think that that's going to affect Arizona a little bit. But what a great opportunity for LA and for Las Vegas to showcase themselves as big event cities, and so they're gonna want to kick that off the right way on opening weekend. It's just kind of a matter of figuring out how to do it. If I had to rank it, I think the Rams would get first precedent, followed by the Raiders and then the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, LA is the bigger market, so you understand that. But at the same time, like Las Vegas is important because it is a new West Coast market. It's a new market. It's a smaller market, clearly, than Los Angeles and some of the other NFL cities. But at the same time, a big deal. Also because of the gaming. NFL has slowly and finally embraced it more than it has in the past. There's still some kind of trepidation there, I think, from some folks in the league, some of the owners, right? But overall, that's a big part of the deal too. Now, when you look at the games and what's going to be happening, Vinny, your sources at all tell you too, I mean, does that mean the Raiders will have the opportunity to maybe be on national TV with more of these games this year because of that stadium?
I don't know that. I know that, right off the bat, they're going to want to showcase it. But you have to look at, their opponents. When you look at their schedule, I think the team that really jumps out as a big time draw would be the Saints, right off the bat. But they have so many natural rivalries within their division that if they improve to the level that they expect to this offseason, then a Raiders-Chiefs game is a draw. A Raiders-Chargers game, the Chargers have some work to do on that end, but that's a draw, and the Raiders against Denver is a draw. I'd have to look deeper into their schedule, but on a year-to-year basis, I think Las Vegas is going to get its share of national games, especially when the schedule lines up. When you look at the Rams' schedule, they've got coming into SoFi Stadium next year the New York Giants, Chicago Bears, the New England Patriots, the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh yeah, big
and
one.
That's on top of the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers. Those are going to be big games for them. So it just so happens that their schedule for 2020, their home schedule, really works out and is conducive to some major dynamite primetime events. I'm not so sure the Raiders schedule has that kind of showcase power, but for sure the Saints right off the bat jumps out as a team that would be a great draw from a national perspective to highlight and showcase Allegiant Stadium's opening weekend.
Absolutely. We're talking to Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal about Allegiant Stadium and its possibility of hosting some pretty big games next year.
Yeah. Hey, Vinny, it's Chaz. Your article got me so excited for next season. I almost forgot that we have one more week of football here, man.
I know, right?
But you kind of answered my question already with the last one. The NFL isn't the most profitable and relevant sporting league in the world for no reason. So talk about how the way they're marketing these games and obviously you're talking about the Raiders going on the big showcase and you have the Chiefs as a big draw. But as far as a marketing standpoint, from your perspective, what does the NFL do that just makes them stand out from other leagues?
Well, I mean, they take advantage of opening weekends. That Thursday night game has a concert and a fan fest that's usually associated with it. When you talk about, and Las Vegas is going to see this firsthand, the NFL draft has become not a 1 or 2 day event, but basically a whole week of events in the city that's hosting it, and that's going to be, really driven home in Las Vegas. It's going to be really cool. Ironically enough, will probably be in Oakland because the Raiders don't actually move their football offices to Las Vegas until June or so when their facility is open in Henderson. So I'll be missing all the highlights. Going to try to talk my way into maybe catching a little bit of that. But things like that, the Combine has become a tremendous event. When you go to Indianapolis and you see all the teams that are highlighted there, and fans from all over, come into town to be a part of it. It's things like that. But then also when you look at their calendar from March, there's a little bit of, I can't even say that because even after the Super Bowl, then you have the Combine. You have some of the bowl games and events that feature some of the top players coming out in the draft. And that bleeds right into the owners' meetings in March, which
Yeah.
coincides with the kickoff of free agency, and then your preparation for the draft. And that's a whole TV event, not just the weekend of, but in preparation for. People, gobble this stuff up. Free agency is a huge window now that creates news and buzz and interest, and that takes you right into OTAs, which are more and more becoming so popular among fans that are hanging on every word, and then minicamp. And then you got a short little break where people finally get a chance to maybe take a vacation and get away from it all. But right after that, it's training camp. So
right back into it. And that's the thing. It's going to be very exciting, Vinny, to see, because this market has not had the NFL before. And as someone who's covered the NFL in a massively large market like you have in Los Angeles with 2 teams, the fact that I don't think Las Vegas knows what's going to hit it, but I do know that they're going to be able to keep track of it by reading you as you're one of the best in the business. And we appreciate you coming on to give us the kind of lowdown on Allegiant Stadium. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. Quick, we've got about 30 seconds. Today's game, you think Derek Carr is going to break that cold snap?
You almost get to a point where you hope for his sake that he does, because he's carrying that thing around like a piano on his back, and he feels it and he knows it, and everyone does. It would be nice for him to be able to do that. I think the Raiders are in a good place spiritually to deal with the elements here and to deal with this game. There's a lot riding on it. They want to be able to finish the season off on the right foot, regardless of what happens elsewhere. So I got a pretty decent feeling that Derek Carr and the Raiders are going to show up today in spite of all the injuries and the cold weather, and at least put up a good fight.
All right, Vinny Bonsignore from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Vinny, thanks, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Happy New Year.
All right, same to you. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, it's Chaz's keys to the game. That's right. We're going to tell you how the Raiders will win the game, if you believe they will, as Chaz will break that down. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The NFL This Morning at 10 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Tim Brown, Hall of Famer. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
All right, Tim Brown. He did not make the top 100 list. We haven't even gotten into that
list. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that list in the offseason.
We'll go into that maybe next week, depending what happens this week. Because, yeah, I mean, it's hard. And I even some players like Richard Sherman were tweeting, you should do it by era, because how do you compare a guy who wore leather helmets to...
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can't compare eras in sports, and that's what everybody tries to do with stuff like that.
It's not possible.
The fact that the guy that's got almost every passing record in the NFL and still playing and isn't on there is just a joke.
Right.
It is.
That tells you all you need to know about it right there.
Lots of Raiders representatives, mostly on defense.
What?
Yeah. Mostly on defense, except offensive linemen, of course, Art Shell.
Right.
So,
Jamarcus Russell make that list? I didn't see all the quarterbacks.
He made the bottom 100th list. Anyway, you're back here with the Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 as we get set for the Raiders Week 17 matchup with the Denver Broncos up at Mile High Stadium, a chilly Mile High Stadium. But we are breaking down the game here, and as we do every week, what we like to do is we have Chaz. Chaz always has homework. He always has homework. Now, Chaz and I didn't do a lot of homework in high school, but he does it here, and he has his keys to the game. So we're going to start off with that. Here's Chaz.
Yeah, this is all new to me. I'm not used to this homework thing.
You didn't do your homework. That's why you're here now.
That's right. I'm paying for it now. Could have had a good job somewhere.
Oh, my gosh.
The offensive line's played big all season, right, guys? The Raiders need one more strong performance from those guys up front. We all know Von Miller's going to do his thing, but Denver rookie Draymond Jones was named AFC Defensive Rookie of the Week last week, and Denver safety Kareem Jackson got the honor in Week 14. And as Benjamin Allbright said, Alexander Johnson, really starting to show up. So that defense, it's going to be a tough game, especially up in the cold, like we talked about. The Broncos have a lot of young guys stepping up. We know it's going to be another Gruden grinder game plan, the Triple G. But, it should go exactly the same as last week. I'm hoping that just last week's game is exactly how we do it this week. Just pound the rock with Washington, a good balance of run and short passes, keep Carr upright, and score early, guys. Not only to take Denver fans out of it, but to kind of stonewall any thoughts Broncos players have of handing the Raiders a playoff denying loss.
Well, and Chaz, no, I agree with everything you've said because, look, with the Broncos, the games always seem to be very close. They always seem to come back down to the last possession of the game, as we saw last year and this year in the first contest. So to me, yes, you have to protect Derek Carr. Derek Carr, and Carr fans can poo-poo the whole cold thing, but it's fact. It's numbers. Can he overcome? If he does, it'll be significant accomplishment for him. Yeah. But until he proves it wrong, it's going to be out there. And to me, that offensive line holding up for him today is going to be big because when you get hit and it's cold, it's even worse.
Right.
So that makes it not a lot of fun. And then your point about Drew Lock, they got to pressure him, but can the defense contain and pressure him is my question for you guys, because with Gardner Minshew, again, a rookie quarterback that I don't think is as good as Drew Lock, at least in my opinion, was able to do it against them. So to me, that's going to be a big part of it is can they rattle that young quarterback early so that he doesn't have the confidence to be aggressive, as Benjamin told us he is.
Well, that was actually my second key there.
Yay!
Drew Lock won the Offensive Rookie of the Week honors in Week 14, but that was really a game, the only game he's really looked good. I think that might have been more of an indictment on Houston coming off of that big win against New England and kind of maybe looking ahead to Tennessee that next week. But, Drew Lock, he's mobile. He's a mobile quarterback. He's improving with every start. So, I would like to see the Raiders overpower that Broncos, injured offensive line early and rattle Lock's confidence, like you said. Now, last week they held Rivers to 3 and outs to start that game, and that's the first time that's ever happened in Phillip Rivers' career. So, it seemed like they took the will out of the Chargers early on, and I think the Raiders need to do that again today.
Yeah, the biggest thing when you're going against Drew Lock, if you get a muddy pocket, get anywhere near his feet, he loves throwing off his back foot, which no one should ever do.
Right.
But that's his thing, man. He did it his whole time at Mizzou. You've seen it so far this year. If you can get a little pressure, get around his feet, man, he's going to throw one up where Mulliner's going to have a shot at it.
Right. And Locke's only hit on 58% of his passes the last 2 weeks, so it's not, he's not lighting it up by any means. But, yeah. So the third thing, the Raiders, they need to finish off drives with points. Like I said last week, the Raiders need to build on the positives of the season and work on limiting the negatives. And one of the negatives this season has been finishing drives. Now, Denver is a top 10 defense, and they are number 1 in the red zone defense now, so it's not going to be easy out there. But again, just play a complete game, 4 quarters, 60 minutes, and get out of Denver with a W.
Yeah, and I think, Chaz, one of the important things to me offensively for them, and we know because we talked about it a lot in the early part of the show, is Josh Jacobs is not playing today. So your biggest weapon on offense as far as the running game goes is out. Now, Washington has done a great job in spelling him, but are they going to be able to run enough today against that Denver defense?
Right.
Which your first
just to have that balance.
Yeah, and your first key about the offensive line, even though you were talking mostly about pass, but it also applies to the run.
Right.
They have to run the ball effectively in that offense because we know they're not going to go downfield, right, Kelly? It's not they don't have a big down the field offense. You can blame that on not having a wide receiver, or you can blame it on Gruden for his play calling and what his offense is, but that's the fact.
Yeah, let's say they haven't all year. Why start now?
Yeah, but you know what? They could, because Denver's secondary, like Benjamin
great.
was talking about, not great. They're down to their 6th and 7th corners, and they're kind of just mixing up plays. They're trying to disguise things because they know that they don't have the talent there right now. So Carr could feast on that secondary today, if weather permitting or whatever. But the Broncos are 3-1 in their last 4 games. They're 4-1 in their last 5 home games. So it's going to be tough up there. It always is.
Yeah, for the Raiders, anytime you go on the road in the AFC West, to me, it's tough. Now, it hasn't been with the Chargers because they don't have their own crowd.
Yeah,
so when you guys, we saw last week.
It's a nice home game for the Raiders there.
Yeah.
That 9th home game every season.
It's a home game for everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right.
But I'll say most of your team, like most of your visiting teams, tickets are cheaper to actually fly to LA
right,
and go to the game than actually watch them in your own home stadium.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question, and since we talked about Drew Lock, we're talking about Derek Carr and the issues with the cold. When you look at the AFC West, obviously you have Patrick Mahomes at the top of the heap there as a quarterback who's going to be there, barring injury, for a long time. The rest of the division's in flux, with the exception of Carr. Carr has been the more consistent and had the longest stay outside of Rivers, and I'm not counting him because let's just say he's going to retire. If he retires, then suddenly in that division you have Patrick Mahomes and Derek Carr, and then Drew Lock and whoever the Chargers decide to throw out there. How much is that going to affect the division over the next few years with the uncertainty at quarterback?
Well, I mean, that's going to be the big question, but I mean, Carr's even kind of in flux the way the conversation's going.
Right.
Because he's done enough to where he's going to be the quarterback next year, but we have no idea what's going to happen after that. So, I mean, you could have a complete new, with like I said, with the exception of Mahomes, you could have complete new quarterbacks all in there.
Right.
Would you be that shocked to see like Jameis Winston in San Diego or like something like that? It's like, who knows?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of questions, a lot of question marks, a lot of things up for grabs. And I just, looking at, we've talked about the Patriots in that division for how many years, and with Patrick Mahomes now and kind of the other 3 teams in the AFC West, they could have a nice run going on. So we really need Derek Carr to step up. I'm sure the Raiders and like you said, with their scouting and their GM, they're gonna rebuild and they're gonna reload again next year. And like Vinny said, $75 million in salary cap going into next season.
90 if you cut Carr.
If you can't. Yeah.
So
well, and here's the thing though with that, and this is something we'll talk about in the coming weeks, which is with Mahomes supplanted in Kansas City, he's not going anywhere. They'll sign him to a contract in the offseason. From everything we've heard, it's going to be the richest one ever for a quarterback. So when that happens, you then, if you're the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Chargers, you have to start thinking about how you're going to build your roster
exactly
around stopping him on defense, especially. And so that'll really impact the draft and free agent signings and even scheme, won't it, Kelly?
Yeah, but I think that whole idea of building around beating one team in your division is kind of a bad idea. And I've never mentioned this to Chaz or talked about it. I had a friend that used to work for the Pacers organization, and I always had the theory that the West was better than the East because for a decade everybody built just to beat Michael Jordan and the Bulls instead of trying to build a better team.
Right.
If you build your team just to beat Kansas City. Yeah, you win those 2 games, but you got 14 more you got to play. So how about build the best team you can and try to mold that around beating Kansas City?
Let the chips fall.
Yeah, more. But yeah, but you do see that because people are like, well, you got to win the division first. Well, yeah, but if you just win all your division games and lose the rest of them, that's not a good sign.
The Raiders have done that before.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Raiders have done everything before. At this point, there's like nothing you can throw out there that they haven't done
or
have failed to do. The highs have been high, the lows have been low, man. I mean, it's all in there.
Yeah. Too funny. All right, we are going to step aside for a break. When we come back, it is the shine time for Kelly Kreiner. It's going to be Kelly's Corner. We don't know the subject. He'll throw it at us here soon. You don't want to leave, though, because it's usually a great discussion.
It's another example about why I hate people.
Oh, okay. So there you go. See, in the spirit of the holiday season, Kelly will tell us why he hates people. All right. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
CBS Sports Radio. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today as we take it home. We're on the home stretch on this Sunday, Week 17 for the Raiders as they battle the Broncos in Mile High Stadium in Denver, Colorado. Coming up here at 1 o'clock. Coming up next here on CBS Sports Radio 1140, it's the Saints and Panthers, followed by the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants after that. Blah. That NFC East just, oh my gosh. Anyway, we are at the time of the show where we allow Kelly Kreiner to take over the very airwaves of CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and allow him to do what he wants as long as he doesn't say bad words and get us in trouble with the FCC.
I haven't done that yet, have I?
No, you have not.
Okay.
So you're good. None of us have. Knock on wood. Knock on wood if you're with me. But Kelly's Corner, Kelly picks a subject. It's not always sports related. It mostly is, but not always sports related. But our listeners love it. They're calling Kelly a character on YouTube, which I would agree with. And I would say it's a big, big compliment. All right, here's Kelly's Corner.
Yeah, today's is kind of sports adjacent. But it's just basically, I hate people. I really do.
We feel that, Kelly.
It doesn't matter what anybody does. There's always some sad, pathetic person out there that just wants to crap on it and complain about it. You know,
I know where you're going with this.
We just had the Christmas season. Nothing's more exciting. And what does everybody do at the Christmas season? They give people gifts. Okay? Lamar Jackson gave every one of his offensive linemen a Rolex. Now, you can go through every team in the NFL, and every quarterback does this, no matter how good or bad they are. You know, your offensive line might be getting you killed. You're still getting them all gifts for Christmas. And you see sometimes, it's PlayStations, it's TVs, it's jewelry, it's clothing, but it's all nice, lavish gifts that they do this. And why do they do this? Because those are the guys protecting you, that are helping you make your money.
Yeah.
Okay? Rolexes is what Lamar Jackson got his offensive lineman. Saw the really nice Rolexes.
Beautiful watches.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's a hell of a gift.
Yes, it is.
And then the then the landslide of stupid people start coming out and talking about how, this is terrible. He could have done so. Those guys can afford their own watches. He should have donated his money to charity. He should have done this and this. Yeah, those guys can afford their own watches, but you know what I'm going to take if I'm rich? I'm taking a Rolex. And you know what? If I can afford it and I've got people like that, it's my money. Right. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want with my money. And you know who shouldn't be talking about it? Everybody else.
Yeah, writers with the Baltimore Sun, which is what you were referencing to. And there was other people out there saying it, and I agree with you 100%, Kelly, because a couple things. Number one, you're right. It's funny how people want to spend other people's money. Because they have more than you doesn't mean you can sit there and dictate what they do with it is right or wrong, number one. Number two, how the hell do you know what Lamar Jackson does with his money? How do you know he doesn't donate a significant amount to charities in Baltimore and around the country?
But it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. But
it's
still.
not your money.
Correct.
Yeah, and it was a reader that wrote in. It wasn't the writer.
Oh, that's right. It was
but there was also an ESPN personality that did that. So, and the funniest thing about the writer is that whole meme, the Karen meme.
Yeah.
The lady that wrote in this thing was named Karen. So, I mean, it just fit perfectly. But my whole thing, okay, so did these people that are complaining about that, did they buy gifts for anybody else in their family and their thing? They shouldn't have done that. They should have donated money to charity. That's the whole thing. You're telling somebody to do something with their money you're not doing with your own.
Well, and
bleep you.
Well, and I don't believe in the whole doxing thing where people go find out all your private information and make it public. But with this woman that wrote the note, I would love to have her on the show and say, okay, how much did you give to charity? Prove it. Show me. Because you're being critical of somebody. And even if they didn't, to your point, Kelly, for point of discussion, we're going to make it matter what Lamar Jackson does with his money, even though it's none of our business. Okay. But the point is, you don't know what he's done, what he's given. So what position are you in to make a judgment on somebody? And oh, by the way, you're right, Kelly. People give gifts this time of the year. Kyler Murray gave his offensive line, I think it was Cardinal, a Yeti coolers or something like that. We talked about this on the Playmakers this week. And we went through the list of all the ones that were public, although Aaron Rodgers was very underwhelming.
You kind of expect that from Aaron, though.
Yeah.
And Kyler Murray, if I'm him, I'm giving those guys maps so they can find whatever, so they can drive to whatever new team they're on next year, because his offensive line got him killed.
Yeah, they did. But still, your point, and I think this is where you're at the time, you're at the holidays. So you're criticizing somebody at a time when they're giving. It doesn't matter what they give, how much it costs. They're giving. He can afford that. Okay, so if that's what he can afford and that's what he wants to do for people important in his life, how is it different than this woman buying her significant other, boyfriend, kids, whatever, a nice gift, a Nintendo Switch, whatever it may be, because that's what they can afford.
Yeah, I've got a buddy of mine, and his girlfriend's one of his favorite phrases on Twitter is, "It costs $0 to worry about yourself."
I love that.
More people need to start doing that.
Yes.
Like the person that takes the time to write in a letter complaining about this. Like,
about an NFL
you know
quarterback.
What? Worry about yourself.
Right.
Yeah, it costs $0 to worry about yourself.
Chaz, you haven't said much.
I'm just here
It's
so
because
I
you
don't
bought
get
us.
fined.
It's because he bought us Rolexes and he doesn't want to get criticized. No, just kidding.
No, I agree. People, I was on the flip side of it, where a lot of people knew about a lot of my personal things when I was working with the Lakers, and I thought, you know what, why bother? Who are you to come in and start writing stories about people? Just. I understand the media has to do their job, but that's really going above and beyond. You really don't do your job about the thing that's on the field. You talk about the game, and you talk about what's happening around the game and in the organization, those kind of things. You don't talk about people's personal lives.
But it's a good story, though.
No,
it's a good story. Well, but it also brings up, we have been in Las Vegas here, guys, with the Raiders coming. We've been a part, and we cover a lot of these community events that the Raiders do. And right now it's mostly alumni guys because the team's not here.
Right.
But we see what they do in Oakland, and the Raiders have always been significantly behind doing major things in their community.
Oh, yeah.
Like passing out shots in the parking lot before you sign with the Seahawks. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I saw him.
But yeah, but
I tried getting in there to do one with him, but
he couldn't get in there.
Man, it was a crowd around that guy.
An offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, it was a huge crowd.
But my point is, these players, and yes, we all know that in any professional sport, in any entertainment, there's people who are jerks. They're not great folks. You try to meet them and they're not really nice. But overall, that's not the case. Overall, these men and women, I'll say women in other sports, WNBA, we've seen it here in town. But with the Raiders in the NFL, they do an amazing amount. And the individual players, as we saw from the Cleats campaign, where they had their charities that matter and where they were donating money and who they were calling attention to, they do significant amounts of work and donate money. So when somebody comes in and, they're millionaires and they're not doing this and blah, 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 to me, and I love that saying, your buddy's tweet. Oh, my God. Take zero effort to worry about yourself.
No, it costs $0.
$0.
But it's just amazing that they'll always focus on the negatives. Like you're talking about all these great charitable, positive things that they're doing in the community, and that just kind of gets brushed aside. And then when something negative comes out, it gets blown out of proportion.
Yeah. Don Henley, Dirty Laundry.
Yeah.
But that's the case. I think most of these guys do. I mean, you've seen it with the Raiders. You go back to their offensive line. Donald Penn was doing it when he was there with the turkeys they gave away at Thanksgiving and all this stuff. So you're right. I think that a lot of that doesn't get covered because people want to reinforce, right, Kelly, the beliefs they have about people. And if they're going to do it, if they're jealous of their economic standing, if they're jealous of their fame, if they think that there's something wrong there, then they use that as a hammer to when they have no background or no right to say anything about it.
Yeah, but the whole thing, and like I said before, it's like, even if Lamar Jackson never did anything for charity, never donated anything, it's nobody else's business what he buys somebody else. And we've lost that. Like, I grew up, you never talked about somebody else's money. When I was growing up.
Right.
You never talk, like, I still to this day don't know who my parents ever voted for.
Yes.
And
I was the same way.
No idea about how much their friends made.
Right.
Because those are you never talked about, never talked about your politics, never talked about somebody else's money. And that's just the way it was.
And the politics thing today, too, is huge. And that's what I always say because, I've discussed it occasionally, but in my house, my kids will ask, hey, who are you going to vote for? And I say, you know what? That's my business in the voting booth. And like because that's the way I learned, like you, Kelly. I learned that to say, look, everything you do in your life does not need to be broadcast.
Right.
And with social media and all that stuff, there's great things that happen with social media and there's terrible things that happen. But that's one of the things. We don't need to know all these interpersonal things that you have. Number one, because, again, we don't care. Not that we don't care about people, except for Kelly, but no, I'm just kidding. But
you want them to make their own choices. You're not trying to deflect. You're not trying to impose your views on them.
Thank you.
Make your own choices.
And you're like you just made that joke about I don't care about people. It's like, I don't care about what people do as long as you're not hurting someone else.
Yes, very libertarian type of view.
I mean, you want to do something stupid to yourself. hey, it's you. You've earned that right. You can do what the hell you want to yourself.
The true essence of freedom.
As long as you're not hurting somebody else,
right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that to me is always the case. Like, just worry about yourself. There's great songs about that subject, by the way. Clean up your own backyard, an old country tune, all this stuff. So yes, and I know. But Lamar Jackson too. I mean, he's having such a great year, and it's one of those deals where I think people are looking to bring someone who's successful down as well in any way they can.
Yeah,
right.
And I was going to say that's the whole thing. It's like somebody's doing better than you, so you got to try to take them down to your level.
Yep. That's how it works.
Just remember, everybody, it costs $0 to worry about yourself.
Yeah.
I love that.
Shout out to Big Mac Ball.
There you go. We're giving shout outs. I love it. All right. We're going to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to, dirty laundry. Look at DJ Max in there.
Nice.
Trent Ogle, our producer and engineer today, doing a great job of listening too. Anyway, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we will give you our NFL picks for the day, as well as our pick for the Raiders versus Broncos. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
The NFL this afternoon at 1:30 on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
You found the most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black. This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gobranson.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Coming up at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Radio 1140, Saints versus Panthers. Is that a game one of us will bet on today? We'll see. We'll get that news here in a minute. But we are also probably we're going to remind you as well to check out Silver and Black tonight, our Tuesday night primetime show, 6 to 7 p.m. Chaz and I will, unless Kelly, you might make it this week too again, right? 2 weeks in a row? Maybe not. All right. We'll see if we can get him. If he has to get his sleep. If you don't get your sleep, we don't. Yep. We might make sure you get your beauty sleep. All right. We are now going to roll into that the pick portion of the day, and we're going to start with Chaz today because I have a feeling Chaz is fired up. He's in a pool. Chaz, tell me about your pool. You're a little nervous. You're second in your pool.
A couple of pools. I won them both last year. I'm in second this year, so I gotta.
You want me to pick the games for you?
I gotta step them up. Yeah, I'm starting to lose my mind over here.
All right, Chaz, who you got today?
Outsmart myself. Isn't that the most genius thing you can do? I outsmarted myself because I'm so smart. I'm going with the big spreads. You called it, Carolina. Carolina plus 14. You know, this time of the year, it's just hard to close out games. It's hard to win by big margins. Obviously, you know, if one team doesn't show up, something crazy happens. But I go with the big spread, so I'm going to take Carolina plus 14. And then what's the other one? Miami plus 17 against New England.
All right. There you go. Kelly, what do you got?
That New England spread's up to 7. Jeez, that's insane. Well, I'm sitting here looking like everything that I bet earlier in this week has just shot up because I got Tennessee -4 because everybody knew the Texans weren't going to play anybody. That's at 8.5 now. You know, the Bears are up to 4.5 and 5. Right. You know, I bet it 20 minutes ago at 3. So It's like everything's moving quick. I like your Miami pick, but Kansas City first half -6.5.
First half.
Yeah, I think that they're going to see at halftime that the Patriots aren't going to lose, so they're going to wind up not
pack it in.
Yeah, they're going to pack in the second half, but I think the first half they're going to come out, kind of take it to them.
Right.
The Ravens Steelers under. I'm trying to find 36. I think the Ravens still win that game, even though they're setting everybody, because the second stringers for Baltimore are still better than the,
RG3
Duck Hodges.
RG3 will have a good day. He's gonna pass and run.
Yeah, but I like Trace McSorley better than RG3. So even if they go to their third stringer, he's going to be able to move that offense enough to eat up clock. Give me the under 36.
All right, under 36, and the first half of the Chiefs 6.5. Is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. And I have I'm not as big a gambler as these guys are, but I'm fresh off my 3-team $60 win.
Nice.
Yesterday's college football. All right, I'm taking the Bills -1.
The Bills.
Winner, chicken nugget dinner.
And then I'm taking the Chiefs I had a -9. I got it earlier. So I have the Chiefs against the Chargers and the Bills -1. So there you go. Okay, so there's the picks, your NFL picks. And I think, Chaz, you guys have done really well this year. I know we were lazy and didn't keep track as much as the Ravens.
Next year we'll all right.
I was going to say, I wouldn't say I've done well. I haven't been tracking it, but I'm not thinking the show's gone too well.
It's been a weird year, though. The NFL, we were listening earlier to some CBS national program, and they were talking about how many games have come down to the last possession.
Right.
It's been huge.
I saw an infographic yesterday that the one-score games, if you flip them, the Chargers are 13-3 and the Raiders are 3-13.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a good thing you don't do that.
Yep. That's really the reason I play a lot of dogs, because of that fact. You get those points, and it comes down to it. Anything can happen right there. It's better to have the points than to laying them.
It is. All right.
Yeah.
So now go ahead.
You say that, yet did you notice who won last night in the college games?
Favorites.
Both favorites.
Right.
And I think I texted it to you yesterday. Before yesterday, the average 21.4 was the win.
One of the games has always been a blowout.
Yeah,
and
always.
It's usually that 1-4.
Yeah.
But now it's funny. I was texting with a friend that Scott, and we were just kind of giving each other crap back and forth because he was on Ohio State, and he told me that he goes, you never bet dogs. I'm like, yeah, because the favorites are winning. Like,
imagine that.
Here's the thing. Bowl games, usually it's dogs early, favorites late, and just always bet against the Pac-12. Like, I don't care who they're playing. I don't care what the spread is.
Yeah.
The opening line, I bet against them put the ticket in the old safe deposit box, and just cash it when the thing's over. I saw something the other day in the last 25 or 24 games against the spread. They're 4-19-1 against the spread.
Wow.
I will take that all day.
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty nice percentage of win there.
It is. And I'm sure, so that means you got Wisconsin. Okay. New Year's Day. All right, so now on to the Raiders pick. I'm going to go first. I have the Broncos winning this 24-17 in a tight game, late touchdown. Broncos take it, and the Raiders will finish at 7-9.
Yep. Wrong. Raiders are winning. They're still inspired. That loss against Jacksonville, it seems to light a fire under them, and then coming out against the Chargers, you really saw that defense playing, inspired ball, and I think that's going to happen again today. I know that the Broncos defense is solid, but I don't think the offense is going to be able to move the ball enough, and that Broncos defense is going to be out there a lot today with that Gruden long sustained drives, So Raiders get out of there with a win, 23-16. I'm not sure everything else will fall in their place though, so might not be a happy ending to the weekend, but the Raiders will definitely get that win.
But you got them, 23-16. All right. Kelly.
That's the one thing, the last thing I wanted to see was everything fall into place, but the Raiders lose to Denver.
Right.
But I think the Texans are going to lose, so the whole playoff thing's out the window.
Yeah, that's worst case scenario.
Yeah. I've got 2017 Denver. It's too cold for Carr. The Carr sputters in the cold weather.
No, he's gonna take care of that today. That's just a myth. Rich Gannon was 1-7 when he was playing for the Raiders in the cold weather.
Yeah,
you're on the road. You're playing against tough competition. It's a skewed number to me.
And Kirk Cousins was 0-8 on Monday night or whatever going to this past week, and we saw what happened. Sometimes streaks are there for a reason, Chaz.
Yeah. No, I know.
I want to hear you guys argue some more. I know, but yeah, I think that's the thing.
We got a minute left
with this game.
You're wrong.
With this game, though, guys. I mean, because they're always so close, it can flip very quickly.
Yeah.
Because I picked the Broncos doesn't mean I don't think the Raiders could win. I think they could, but they need to come out and show that they can do it in the cold and can do it when the pressure's on the line.
And like you just said, with that stat that CBS they were talking about earlier, just all these games coming down to the final possession. This probably be the same thing.
All right, Kelly Kreiner, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it as always.
No problem.
Good luck this week with liking humanity a little more. Chaz Osborne.
Good luck with humanity this week.
Humanity's dead to me.
Chaz, thanks, brother. Yeah. And thanks for always being the optimist. This is the last show of the year for us, right? Because our next show.
Yeah, but Chaz is going to find a way to have the Raiders win next week, even if they miss the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. They're winning the Super Bowl again this year.
He's the eternal
Raider
optimist. But yes, we will be back. Our last show actually will be Tuesday. That's Silver and Black Tonight. That'll be on New Year's Eve, so as you're getting ready and getting dressed to go out, you can listen to what we have to say about the Raider game, and then we'll be back with you next Sunday with our big roundtable if the Raiders should not make the playoffs, which pretty significant chance they won't, but we'll see how that all works.
7% chance to make the playoffs.
7?
7.
So you're saying there's a chance.
And I'm saying it's a 7.
More like
it's
1 in a million.
7's a good number if you're gambling.
It's 1 in,
right?
It's more like 1 in 15. But it's
all right.
1 in 100?
All right. So make sure you check out silverandblacktoday.com. Great piece up there about college players to watch from our senior NFL columnist Mo Moten, as well as a bunch of other content. Tuesday, 6 to 7, right here, Silver and Black Tonight. Next week, we'll be back here, 8 to 10, for Chaz Osborne, for Kelly Kreiner, and for our engineer, Trent Ogle. I am Scott Branson. We appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you next time, Raider Nation.